Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Geekonomics. Today, we're going to talk all things Brenda, who's right behind me. And who are we going to talk to about Brenda? The man who invented Brenda. The one, the only, Matt C. Ryan of Free Lunch Studios. Hello, Matthew. How are you? How have you been?
I am good. I am good. Happy holidays to you and everybody out there in Geekonomics land.
Brian
I'm
is on
good.
assignment this week, so we decided to have you come in to promote your new book.
Where is Brian?
He's on an undisclosed location. I can neither confirm or deny where he's located.
I'm going to hack the system and find out where he
Might
is.
have to. Yeah, you might have to. I will be seeing him after this, but he just couldn't do the show because he didn't have a work schedule didn't work out this week. But we'll be after this. I'm heading out to meet him to go see Godzilla -1.
Oh, I need to see that.
Yeah, our last visit to the Enfield cinemas before they close on Thursday.
Thursday's their last day.
Yeah. So that's not why we're here. We'll be talking about that next week. We're here to talk about Brenda.
Yes.
So Brenda is an idea you had. If I am speaking incorrectly, correct me. She was part of the old Food Fight group, and then you decided to spin her off into her own book. This is an idea you threw at me one morning before a comic show at IHOP. You gave me the whole rundown of the whole story, basically, of the first 4 books, I think. You read the whole thing out to me at like 8 o'clock in the morning at IHOP. I was like captivated and probably the most awake I ever got that early in the morning because it was so good. And I was like enthralled by it. And you wanted to show me all these images and stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't want to see any of it until it comes out. I wanted to be surprised. Of course, I've seen a couple of the books are already out. I've seen some of them. They're amazing. But tell us, where did Brenda come from in your things?
Brenda is actually very much influenced by my 2 daughters, who are not small anymore. But
they're very tall.
What that? Yes,
they're very tall now.
But the first Brenda story was a 24-hour book, and there were 3 stories. One was her tormenting her babysitters. One was her making her father eat her cookies. And one was her begging to go out to the pit fights, which is kind of the equivalent of a kid at the time wanting to go to like their favorite fast food restaurant, stuff like that. That was the first story. And I don't think I've shared any of those stories with anybody yet. But she's very much influenced by, my two beloved daughters, and I'm a huge fan of a certain Robert E. Howard character. So I basically, took those 2 inspiration sources and put them together in a fun way. When she got into the Food Fight books, that was I started doing the Food Fight books to provide a product for a younger audience, because we really weren't serving a young audience at all. And at the time, we were seeing tons and tons of kids, and it was kind of heartbreaking to kind of do these shows, these lectures, these events. It was a very, very different time for me. And it was kind of heartbreaking to not be able to share a product. Not that the things that we were doing weren't good. They were fun. I would say that like Only in Whispers probably is my best sequential art at a serious level in print. But it just wasn't for kids. And
I remember working those shows, and like all you had at your booth was like Biggers and that, and then like Terra Wellfleet, like along that vein of stuff.
Sure.
we'd have kids come up and we were always like, no, stop, get away from there.
Well, yeah,
You
and
know, so I was like,
I feel like I had a pretty good I had a pretty good sense or ability to be able to tell kids, hey, listen, sorry, this isn't
yeah,
appropriate for you.
yeah,
It was an absolute relief to be able to say, but Food Fight is.
yeah.
And actually, before Food Fight came out, we actually had a digital exclusive comic called Chip and Fish, and that was kind of the entryway into that genre.
And so then from the Food Fight, which I think you said, I think if I remember correctly, there's 5 issues of Food Fight, 6 maybe around
Yeah,
there.
I think it's
Around
6.
there.
I think
Yeah,
it's 1 through 7, and we skipped 5
yeah, that's right.
in because I was going to put a game inside it.
Yes,
But now that game is going to live inside the Brenda books.
hopefully that's the.
Oh, it's happening. We've already got Steve Canaris is already writing a poem. So Robert E. Howard, very similar in kind to Tolkien, they would write poetry in these fantasy stories, and so Brenda will have a poem based on this rite of passage, this game that people in her and other rival tribes that they play. And if you go to the Free Lunch Studios Patreon right now, you can actually read Tumblin' Rock right now. The story is there for free to enjoy. But that will be a game that will live inside the comic that you can open up and just start playing.
And that's a different way than you usually do these books with the Patreon, is you did this where you'd release portions of the books on Patreon first, and then at the end of that, release the book as itself. Is that
so?
That's how you did it. Remind me how you did it.
The way I think I can grab one right here. Yeah. So the way that we got the Tower of the Pelican right here. The first story in the traditional Brenda books is the free for all, right? And that's a story that's typically released digitally on the web first, and it's for free for everybody. And then there are people who get to read the color content before it goes to print.
Yeah.
That's a very exclusive club, and we charge $1 a month for that privilege. And then
that's still open. People can sign on to that now if they wanted to, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Currently, they're reading through Flame of Souls, which is a story that actually takes place before Frost Giant's Babysitter and Tower of the Pelican. A lot of different things going on here.
Yeah.
So we have 2 main streams of books. We have the main title, Brenda, and then we have the Savage Stories of Brenda Steelhammer. Savage Stories of Brenda Steelhammer are self-contained. Well, they're all going to be self-contained stories, but this is exclusively black and white. It will always be black and white, and this one will move around in time, where this one is a static, forward-moving spear.
Material like the regular comics would be.
Yeah. And basically we have, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but there's horde life, right? When the horde, Brenda is a princess, basically the daughter of a barbarian Lord Great and Steelhammer. He's in charge of the Steelhammer horde, and they travel zigzag all over Valtoria, basically looking for a place to call home. And as these hordes, and there's different ones, as they travel, they will recruit members, they will drop members, but they will bebop around the continent, and we kind of catch them just as they're breaking into or getting into the lands of Tubaru. And in the current story, they find a dead, I don't want to call it a city, but I guess it is. They find a dead city, and Brenda and her father, it's almost like a take your daughter to work day. And they go in and explore this giant tower that's in the center of the city, and it's a tribute to Tower of the Elephant, which was a Conan story, um, but it's a lot more silly
Mm,
and a lot
yeah,
more fun. But there's jokes in there that the diehard Conan fan would appreciate.
yeah.
Um,
And that's the thing with this book too, is it's like you're saying at the beginning that it was like you want to do something geared towards younger audience, but these aren't totally just for kids. Like they're kind of like all ages. Like anyone could get into
so
it and read
I,
them and get something out of it.
I would say anybody who can still sit down and enjoy like a Looney Tunes or kind of appreciates the old Tex Avery cartoons or even like sits down with their kid and watches and enjoys a Scooby Doo. I think that those individuals, like Uncle Scrooge, the Carl Barks run, was notorious for having just as strong an adult following as it did a kids
Yeah,
following. Bone, I loved the Bone books. You could pretty much guarantee that it wasn't necessarily kids buying those Bone
yeah,
books when Image was putting them out. Um, so I would put Brenda next to Bone. I would put Brenda next to obviously it's not necessarily as innocent as Uncle Scrooge,
yeah,
purely just because of the slapstick violence.
yeah, yeah,
If someone likes wrestling, if someone likes Three Stooges, then they're going to find some fun,
yeah,
in these pages. Yeah.
yeah. So Brenda, you have how many of them out now? How many of you released already?
Of the main series of the Brenda series, we have Frost Giant Babysitter and we have Tower of the Pelican. Um, we have sold out of the zombie. There was kind of we worked with Bill Bullock and he basically we teamed up and I used his basketball team and he used Brenda. We kind of put them together similar to the Scooby Doo meets the Harlem Globetrotters story.
Mm,
And we did our own version of that with his basketball team that he had at the time and Brenda. And that was a horde life experience. Those books are gone.
yeah,
And that's a wonderful thing. It's bittersweet, right? So it's gone. So if you
yeah,
have one, hold on to it because I'm going to change it and I'm going to put it back out. It's going to fit into the savage stories of Brenda Steelhammer.
yes.
Um, it'll fit beautifully into this package. I actually sent you one of the.
Which
I
you'll be
sent.
seeing on the screen right
I said,
now, showing
yeah,
that.
you're showing that now. Oh,
We'll,
very cool.
yes, yes.
Um,
I'll
so
insert it afterwards, but it will be popping up in this space.
that'll be the new cover, the new
Yeah,
repaint cover, and I'm going to redraw and zombify some of the faces, and I might put in a couple extra pages because we were working within a restriction
yeah,
of it was basically a basketball program. It was fitting. It was basically pumping up these players as well as my
mm,
character. And the book came out right before Frost Giant Babysitter,
yeah,
so that was on. I'm going to repackage that. Pool the Big One will be out for Free Comic Day next year for sure, and Tumbling Rock will be out next year too, for sure. My plan is to put out 2 books a year. Um, I have Steel Hammer and Chains, which I'm coloring now, and I have The Cursed Sword, which is not colored yet, but that will be a monster.
mm,
That will be that it's done art wise. The pencils, the writing, the pencils, and the inking is done,
yeah,
and it will be a monster. We're probably looking at 60 pages or more, compared to the 40-page multi-story format that we're heading towards with the main title
mm.
series. Um,
And that's the
I
other thing
have
people might not know is that you're basically like you're one man banding these basically
not really.
more than most people would think. Like if that's why that's why you're doing two a year is that you're like you're writing it, you're drawing it, you're coloring most of the books.
Yeah.
You might have people helping you out with little ancillary things here and there, but you're basically doing this all yourself out of your little
Sure.
shop. So
Yep.
it takes time. It's not.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so if you want to see more comics, like you can go to Bad Elf and see the comics I'm doing.
Yeah. And you have a full-time job. So
that's it, right?
yeah.
So doing the comics for them.
Yeah.
So like every night I ink before going to sleep. I'm currently inking the free for all story that will be in front of Steel Hammer and Chains, which I'm very, 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 very. You get excited for every single one of these stories, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but I'm super duper stoked.
I know some of them, kind of little bits here and there, but
Ain't know nothing about the free for all for that book.
not that one. But
No.
I've been putting in the show, which you'll see after seeing this happen, that I've been putting in the information on how to get more info about where to get these books at. But why don't you tell us verbally, where can someone get a Brenda book?
So, like, if you want to be on the cutting edge of these stories, if you want to be in front of the wave, if you look up Free Lunch Studios on Patreon, it's $1 a month, and you can read content right away. We've got a new page hitting tomorrow. It's one of my favorite examples in Zipatones that's coming out tomorrow. Zipatones is that gray, those different dot patterns that create grays on pages.
Yeah.
Because it's a black and white story, I had to ink it in a very, very different way. And you're going to see I think we're on a 3 or 4 page run of some of the best zips I've ever done. So I'm super duper stoked about that.
If someone were to jump in now on the Patreon, could they go back and read the previous books, or how does
but I do archive them. So okay. Tower of the Pelican is still there. Once Pool of the Big One comes out, I'm going to archive Pool of the. Think this through. Once Pool of the Big One comes out, I'm going to archive Tower of the Pelican.
Tower of the Pelican, yeah.
Yeah. You can get it through the website. I have Frost Giant Babysitter up at freelunchcomics.com or freelunchstudios.com. I have to be a little better about that. I have to update the solicitations. But then I'm talking to somebody about doing print on demand and distribution for Brenda, which will be a hands-off experience for me, which is great. So I'll be making that announcement relatively soon. And then I go to the local shows. Our big shows are Mohegan by far. When we do
for the people who don't know, Terrificon, but that's in August.
Yep.
Scott show in February.
Scott's show, yep, we do that every year. Cliff's show, absolutely. We just did the Bristol show a couple weeks ago, and we've got his year-end special coming up on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, the Manchester Toys and Comics show.
Andrew's show, very, very fun. I like that show because it's a comic and toy show, so there's a lot of kids there.
Yeah. And to keep track of all this stuff, you have these all listed on Free Lunch where you're going to be at, so people want to know where to find you.
It's all
get a hard copy.
When that content comes out, I put it on the Patreon page. We put free content on the Patreon page too. So Free Lunch Studios is pretty static. The Patreon is pretty kinetic, but they're linked. So if you go to Free Lunch Studios or Free Lunch Comics, you can click on the Patreon link and you can see content that's constantly moving and shifting and changing. So if you were going to read the free for all, like Tumbling Rock, if you didn't go through the Patreon page, you'd be able to go through from Free Lunch Studios through the link right on the main page. And then book signings. I've done great book signings at Wonderland over in Putnam, Matt's Comics in Enfield, Simsbury Cards and Comics right around the corner from here.
Spot there in East Windsor.
Say it again.
Spot there in East Windsor. I can't think of the name of it right now.
East Windsor.
The little shop there that you took me to.
The House of Books and Games. I love those guys.
Yes, yeah.
That's over in Windsor. That's
Windsor. That's it.
They are wonderful people there. Yep. Yeah. So yes. So I go around and I'm always trying to sniff around and find opportunities. Even the Brick House, the warehouse shows, I've done a signing there. And I've had great experiences at all of these book signings. So
So if someone's watching this and they are looking to book you for a book signing, would they just go through Free Lunch Comics, or is there an easier way to get in touch with you, or is that the easiest way?
that's a pretty easy way. And there's a nice like a form field kind of thing where you can go in and put in your information, and I get those, and I'm pretty good at responding to those within a couple days. But yeah, that's a great easy way to get a hold of me for sure.
And since we can talk about it on this because it's a podcast, they're not expensive, the books. If someone were to want to purchase a book, how much are the covers?
Right, the color books,
Yeah,
which I'm very, very proud of. They're $9 a copy. There's 40 pages of content. There's no fluff in here. It's all it's wonderful. We even hide a prose story in here, going back to Conan's roots. We're going to do that every book. The only one I didn't do it in was the Frost Giant Babysitter. And then the Savage Stories of Brenda Steelhammer are typically going to be $5. That's a page count specific scenario. And Cursed Sword is probably going to cost a little more too, just by the size of it, and the binding's probably.
You do fancy versions as well, where you do like sketch covers and different things too.
I'm getting pressured.
Yeah,
Pressured to do that.
Yeah.
Which I should be doing anyway.
Yeah, and those are all available. And then if you get them at a show, I will tell you because I've seen it happen. Matt will sign it for you, and he'll draw little fancy stuff inside your books for you as well. So that's the point of getting it at a show in person, as opposed to just buying it at some random location.
It's true. Even if you buy from the website, I'll draw on it too.
Yeah.
But I have my stock images that I draw in different issues. But if you buy the book from me when I see you at a site, I also give you fun little things that may point at secret stuff that's going on in the future. So, and I've been doing that here, and I've been talking a little bit more liberally about what's coming.
And you'll probably just show them a future book that you probably are working on.
Or I'll tease some artwork. I don't.
Well, he does that. He does that. I tell him not to all the time, and he still does it anyways. But I think that you do too with this book, and you've kind of, I don't know if you've started adding it into the new books or going to be adding into the new books, is if a fan of the book does a drawing of one of the characters in the book, they might get it seen in the book. Correct?
So every piece of fan art absolutely gets published at the site, and then I'll pick my favorite one. Every single book will have missive. We call them missives from the Horde. And Brandy Caterino drew one for the Frost Giant Babysitter. Trying to think of the young man's name. Benny, 8 years old, drew one for Tower of the Pelican.
Is that the one that we got? If I remember correctly, I remember we got that at a show.
Yeah, it was a man.
Tell a little bit of what that was like. Because I remember when we were there when it got handed to you. But what was that like but still, like when someone hands you a drawing about a book you worked on or you've done, what's that like?
It's wonderful, especially if it's coming from like a little kid. It means you impacted them. It reminds me of, I remember I was lecturing at the New Britain Art Museum, and it was like a multi-session lecture series. And at the time, the book that I was doing was Black Roses. It was like a sci-fi space pirate book. And I remember a couple of girls in the front row were arguing on who they thought the stronger pirate was. And I was like, yo, that's pretty cool. Shut up, kids, but keep doing it. Like it was pretty awesome. So then when you get somebody's unique interpretation of your character, I think that's fantastic. There's really no better compliment, the fact that they went home and you were able to create something that impacted them at a level where they wanted to jump in and make something
Hmm.
related to it. That's a wonderful, wonderful compliment, and I'm honored. And the artwork that I've received has been phenomenal. Um, from uh, Hector Rodriguez to these cute little kids bebopping around in early elementary school.
Hmm.
Like it's there's no better compliment than that. When you make a comic and someone has to enjoy, they leave your presence or whatnot, and they go and they enjoy it on their own somewhere. Um, you never really know. You never really know how they feel about it. And
Anything media wise, when you do it, you don't know if anyone's ever going to see it, watch it, look at it, read it, whatever.
yeah,
And
until
then
they either ask
come
to do
back,
more.
someone says something to you about it, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, what?
That's it.
Someone's
That's it.
actually enjoying this? It's
Yeah.
not just you
Yeah.
just making stuff to the world, basically.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
that's a wonderful compliment. And I have to commemorate it, in the
Yeah.
book or on the site. Um, Ultimately, will I collect them all into like maybe a downloadable PDF? Sure. We live in a digital age here where I can take a lot of random Brenda stuff and put them
Hmm.
together.
Yeah.
Um, I'm actually thinking about going back and getting those Brenda stories that you can't get anywhere anymore, and putting them into a Savage Stories of Brenda Steelhammer.
Yeah. Like some of the old food fight kind of like
Yeah,
slip
totally.
things.
Yep, yep,
Like
yep.
how she got into that world and where that all came from. Like an origin of how she ended up in food fight world.
Um, no, I think that's the crazy thing. As far as Food Fight is concerned, they're all moving to her neighborhood.
Yeah.
She's not into theirs. We kind of, when Food Fight would come out, it was like we would squint and make a weird agreement that I was taking these characters that could have been from absolutely different surroundings, different eras, different
Hmm.
whatever, and we were putting them together purely for the sense of slapstick conflict. Um, we still have slapstick content. Um, why can't I put them together? I,
Yeah.
I'm the,
Why
I'm the
not?
guy.
You're
So,
the the, the creator. You can do anything you want with it.
and that's really it. And
Yeah.
so, if you read Tower of the Pelican, you already got one. You already got one cameo. Actually, maybe I'm looking at it now. You actually have two food fighters
Hmm.
in Tower of the Pelican right off the bat, and I know that there's another one bebopping around, and I don't know. I've drawn so many pages
Yeah.
for this stuff. I'm
Understand.
not necessarily sure where they're landing.
Yeah.
Um, but I will tell you that um, by the time Steel Hammer and Chains comes around, we will have addressed some intense food fighter desire. Intense. You're going to get food fight characters that I thought of that I've never even used before, and they're funny. They're ridiculous. So very, very excited. Um, and I think the history that I came up with, of Valtoria, the world that they're
Yeah.
in, complements half of the food fight characters right off the bat. So,
Yeah.
yep.
So not only do you have Brenda going on, I know you have other stuff you're working on in the background besides that. Uh Terra Wellfleet 2 still works.
Oh man, time is not my friend. But oddly enough, that book is like 75% done. But the bad part of that is I'm really doubling down on Brenda.
Yeah.
I think as much as I love Tara Wellfleet, I know you love Tara Wellfleet.
I do. It is my favorite. Besides Brenda, it is my favorite.
For horror fans,
Yeah.
and on the website, you can download that.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to put that out. Time will tell. How about that? Time will tell. Um, I am looking up at the surface of the water, seeing all of the different books that are in front of me. I will tell you, it's an exciting time. I will tell you, it's some of my best work. I think if I jump back to Terror of Wellfleet, I'll be taking my eye off the ball. Maybe it's something that I could resolve maybe during a 24-hour or something like that. But even then, like, unfortunately, like the only other jobs that I'm doing at this point now, aside from Brenda, I still do the wrestling commissions. I'll do like 1 or 2 a month of those.
Yeah.
But
you can get those through Captain's Corner, correct? That's still...
I do. Yep. I've got another one. I just did the Nasty Boys. I've got another one coming up that I have to turn in next week sometime. And then I'll do an occasional caricature job. That keeps me pretty busy, considering that all I'm doing during the day is drawing comics too.
Yeah.
So it's, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
But they're there. They're close. They're close to me right now. I don't know where, but they're here. But the problem is, you got to scan it, got to letter it, got to, layout. And that all sounds wonderful. It's not even done. That's the other problem.
Well, I understand.
We can't say never. Well, I'm never going to say never.
Say never, but I can hope that one day you'll get the bug.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, I have a Connie book.
I know you do. You have like multiple things sitting like partially
just
done.
Waiting. I know, and Connie, that book is done. I just have to put it together. Oh, all right. Next subject.
So, where would we find you next? Where's the next place you're going to be at where people can see you and in person and get a Brenda book or any of the other books that you have available?
It's like I said, it's pretty much all Brenda all the time now, and it'll be at the end of the year at Cliff's show at the Plainville VFW, and literally on the last day of the year.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm thinking of having something very cool there. Yeah. Something very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but I've got this huge Brenda banner now, and I've got a Brenda tabletop banner.
I've seen it, yes.
The next thing I'm going to get is the like a table drape. Yeah, I really want to pull the trigger on something pretty special. And still in the Brenda world, a couple people have come by for like the editorial readings and stuff like that. And they saw it and they lost their minds. It's different. It's different, but it's still in that universe. So, we're constantly thinking about fun ways. It's all my intellectual property, which is great. Yeah, I'm kind of, there's something coming. And I think I might pull the trigger on it and bring it to that show.
There's always, you're always talking about all these different ideas and things you have going on. And it's always interesting to kind of toss around ideas with you, of course, and bounce things off each other.
Well,
things you can do to get the word out. But check out freelunchcomics.com, the Patreon. You're on the social medias.
It's Free Lunch Studios at the Free Lunch Studios through Patreon.
Okay. Social medias are all just Free Lunch Studios.
Yep.
So you can get those on the Facebooks, the Instagrams.
Yeah.
Other things you're on.
I think that's enough.
Yeah. You're
Good
not,
Lord.
you're not TikTok or anything. I remember
I,
you tried
I
TikTok for
was,
like a
I,
second.
I was for a hot minute.
Yeah, you realized you were old and you couldn't do TikTok.
You know what? It's just too much. It's too much. It just even Twitter. It's just too much. Too many
Yeah.
things.
Or the X now they call it.
Right.
Yeah. They changed the name and everything. So there you go.
Yep.
Yeah. So check all that stuff out and get Brenda for this holiday season.
Yeah. Do it.
A special holiday package set up. Who knows?
Yeah.
A whole set given to your kids.
Yeah. There you go. You can
Folks,
find
I
you
have
some.
talked to many of people who buy them and then take them home, read them to their kids, and then they end up getting into it themselves, and they're all into it now. So,
Which is cool.
yeah.
Which is
So,
really cool.
thanks for giving us some time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. Appreciate you spending some time hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Next week, we'll be talking Godzilla -1 and a whole lot more. So stay tuned for that. It's Geekonomics. And as always, be safe, be well, be kind. And if Brian was here, he'd add and rewind. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Brian.